So if there's an emotional clashing inside the relationship, as I mentioned before, you notice of the water element. So you got to counterbalance it, okay? And this applies to men and women, okay? So you got to counterbalance it with the earth reflection and begin to try to provide a foundation, begin to inspect is there cracks in the foundation in the relationship or whatever, because obviously there's something that's revolving around the emotion to get the emotion uh, raging or is creating a clash. All right. So when you begin to do that, you begin to look at the security. You know what's not being felt secure, what is insecure, what can you securitize. You start looking at all these different things. What needs to begin to happen. Once you begin to identify that, and you begin to trace it to the images, the emotions, and the decisions, you start having some ground to figure out what can be transmuted, right? What can be rectified and moving more in a space of resolution. So once you identify this uh, from the earth beginning to counterbalance the water reflection, and the reason why I do that is because, as the example I use, when you got a bowl and you shake the bowl, the water is moving. It's hard to see clearly. When you place the bowl on a stable platform, the water is going to eventually conform and it's going to be stable. It's going to reflect back the stability that exists. So, emotional clashing is a reflection to us that something is not stable, okay? And we have to begin to uncover what is causing the instability. In this case, it's being acted out and played out in the emotions, okay? And so, when you think about the emotions, there's basically, I could say there's five elements to the emotions to help us get some understanding. You got the feelings, you got the interest, you got the attention, you got the curiosity, and you got the perceptions. And all these might come into play. So it's hard to get an understanding to see what's all being at play in emotional clashing if we can't bring the earth element in place so we can begin to dissect the emotional clash. We got to look at the feelings, right? We got to look at, uh, what the sensation and stuff is behind it. You got to look at the interest. Where are they interested in? Sometimes we're conflicting, competing with interests, and we don't know it. What's holding our attention? What's got us occupied? You might be occupied in the wrong thing in the situation, but you won't know until you present the earth element. All right. You want to look at the curiosity. Sometimes people, and that leads to assumptions, right? So sometimes people are reacting out of assumptions, but you're not going to know that until you bring in the earth element or the earth reflection with that water reflection to help bring some counterbalancing. Then also you've got to identify what's being perceived, right? Is it being perceived through the feelings, or is it being perceived through the lens of truth? I always like to tell, especially I tell clients stuff, we want to perceive things through the lens of truth. We give place for the emotions, give place for the ego and all this stuff. But the end of the day is the truth trumps it all. Okay? When you begin to unpack this, um, then you got to what? Now you got to figure out what can we need to regenerate something or generate something in this scenario in conjunction with this emotional clashing. Once we begin bringing the earth reflection, we stabilize it, securitize it, begin to identify things. Now we got to figure out how to generate something new. And that shifts into the air element, the air reflection. And the air element, the air reflection is the communication piece. That's the piece that we want to bring in. So what type of a communication that we need to establish to help what? Settle the emotions, right? To help securitize what's at play, to help strengthen the foundation. So what communication that we need to do together, everyone involved in the relationship, to make that happen. And then also what thoughts and ideas that we need to make sure is being impressed upon us inside the relationship to make sure that the harmony is going to be existent inside the relationship. So this is an example of how to deal with emotional clashing from the reflective element perspective behind relationships.